I work in the big data space as well, and I know what we've been talking about here for the last couple days, but there's another side of big data which everybody will acknowledge, and it's sensors, producing massive, massive amounts of big data. And that's what we're working on in the smarter cities space that would be of interest to you. And what we want to talk about here are the 5 innovations that will change cities in the next 5 years. And this is part of our overall Smarter Planet campaign. Actually, I won't even call it a campaign. I'll call it more of an initiative. And one of the first ones is that cities will have a healthier immune system. And by that I mean we're moving towards cities en masse. There has never been such a mass migration to urban living ever in history. And it's going faster and faster and faster. And in China, where entire villages are moving into the cities, etc. And the immune system is at risk. And by that, I mean the immune system of the city. This city right now, and not just San Francisco, is a hotbed for infectious diseases. Influenza, H1N1, can spread very, very quickly. So in the future, what we're going to see, and in the very close future, is the ability for healthcare professionals to be able to track what's happening and be able to act proactively, even down to the neighborhood level, so that they can work on preventing these diseases in advance. And so that whole immune system thing is extremely important. I will also say that it'll work its way out to the businesses and to the schools to be able to get that immune system information, we'll call it that, the immune system of the cities tracked, and then be able to follow where those things are happening so that they can preemptively work on what's happening in that immune system space. And we're working with a lot of different organizations, including those around the world that are helping track that information in a way that we're calling the health web. It'll be the health internet. And it's a way for us to be able to anonymously look at profiles, look at people's health profiles, and determine around the world where we might have issues. And so that's one of the things we're working on today. Another thing that we have is that city buildings will sense and respond like living organisms, and in fact, they are. Today in most buildings, water, electricity, security, heating, all of those things work separately, and that can't continue. Because the cities will become a big organism, the buildings have to as well, because the buildings are part of the overall city. And so we're working with a lot of different organizations. In fact, one of them is the Dragon Hotel over in, I think it's pronounced Hangzhou. Pardon me, anyone from China, if that's in the province, and we're working with them to create a smarter building architecture so that they can sense and respond like living things. Another big example of this is when we go and look at the cars and the cities and the buses that will run on empty. E will no longer mean empty. E will now mean enough. We have scientists and researchers that are working on cars where I only have to charge them every few days or every few months, and cars that I will be able to charge and get between 300 and 500 miles out of these automobiles instead of the current 50 and 100 miles out of the automobiles. And when it comes to a smarter city, that requires a smarter grid. We'll have to be able to plug these cars in where needed. And the city will have to know that, hey, there's a high usage of these automobiles in this part of the town, and in fact there's a concert or a sporting event, and we need to be able to adjust our electric grid to be able to compensate for that, and to be able to absorb from the autos. The automobiles will generate electricity. In fact, the time will come when, if you lose power in your house, you plug in your car so that it can power your house. And these electric automobiles will be able to feed information or feed electricity back into the grid so that you and I can get credits. So we're working right now with there's a group over in Denmark that's called the Edison Research Consortium, and we're working with them to create an infrastructure that is reproducible to handle this large scale of automobiles, electric automobiles in a city environment. And we're also working with, in Helsinki, it is the Finnish Transportation Authority, so that they can have a single view of their infrastructure for all of their transportation. When they see automobiles move from place to place, traffic, weather, accidents, etc. So they can use predictive analytics to see what's going to happen. And there's a massive amount of data that's being produced by all of this. Another is if we look at the smarter systems that quench the city's thirst for water and save energy. Today, 1 in 5 people do not have access to fresh drinking water. Utilities, municipalities are losing about 50% of their water every day to leaky pipes. And it's estimated that there will be a 6-fold increase in the requirement for water from all of us over the next 50 years. Needless to say, that's a fragile system. So we're working on a sewer system so that we can decrease the amount of sewage that are dumped out into lakes and into rivers, purify that water so that it can be reused as drinking water, and reduce the transportation costs so that water can be, instead of being shipped, used locally and then recycle that water. Needless to say, a lot more sensors and a lot more big data. And cities will be able to respond to crises even before they receive an emergency phone call. Imagine this, and by the way, we're working on this. City Central has different groups. There's water, and there's sewer, and there's transportation, and there's electricity. And they realize that there's a sensor that says there's a flow problem in this sewer line. And they're looking at the information right now, weather information, doing analytics that says, hey, there's a good chance of rain. And if that sewer line is plugged and there is rain, we know through our historical data there's a good chance for flooding. And we know that there are buses that are being routed through that area, and we're going to have to reroute those buses. So right now, there's coordination then between those in transportation, those in sewer, water, the predictive analytics behind what's happening out in the weather. And City Central says, oh yes, and by the way, we use that same route to be able to distribute food to people in need. And therefore, we have to reroute. That is a smarter city. And that's happening today. And in fact, the fire department in New York, FDNY, some of the greatest heroes in this country, they're working on predictive analytics on those different things so that they can look at fire potential. They're working, integrating with one of their analytic databases that's a coordinated building inspection database so that they can decrease the chance of fire, prevent them in advance, and then be able to work with the local people to reduce the amount of risk for those in the fire space. That is what a smarter city is all about. In this room today are some of the smartest people in the world. Now think about it. This is true. Step back and look. Some of the smartest people in the world and some of the greatest innovators in the world. What I would ask you, please, go out in the city and turn off your phone and turn off your iPad and take a look around. I've done it for the last 2 days, especially here in this city. And look at the organism that is the city, and you will be amazed that it works. You truly will. You look at all of the things that are happening, and you'll be amazed that it works. Turn off your phone, turn off your iPad, and look at it and say, okay, we are innovators. How can we do something to improve and help and create a smarter city? And you say, well, we're in business. Consider doing this, and your potential market is every city in the world. That's incredible. So please, I ask you, start looking at a smarter city and start looking at those sensors and the amount of incredible information that they produce and how analytics can be applied to those, and it ends up working for a smarter planet, and it ends up being a great feeling when you go home at the end of the day and you know that you've had something to do with that. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to John. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks very much.